Hello, everybody. Thank you for watching. It is the American Doofus Show. Don't be a doofus. I'm your host, Barry Walsh. Please subscribe, hit that notification bell so you'll know when we're on. Like, share, and leave a comment. If you'd like to help support the show and keep it going financially, please do so at the Cash App with $ American Doofus, all one word. AMERICANDUFUS with the $ in front of it for the Cash App. If you'd like to contact me, you can do so through Gmail at americandufus, all one word, at gmail.com. We begin with an announcement concerning Americans and wearing masks. Those of us that have been fully vaccinated, the CDC now recommends that we no longer be required to wear a mask unless we are in a doctor's office or a hospital zone. So basically, the CDC has said we are clear now, those of us that have been vaccinated twice, to go maskless in public, in the outdoors, in the indoors, in large groups, in all settings. I personally am still going to wear a mask on occasion because I just feel like it's the right thing to do to protect myself and to protect others in this still trying time. One other announcement I want to make regarding Elizabeth City, North Carolina. We've been keeping an eye on Elizabeth City since the tragic killing of Andrew Brown Jr. And Elizabeth City is going to be holding a protest march and rally on Saturday. Now, Elizabeth City needs help from outside. They're inviting people from all states, from all counties, from all across the country to come to Elizabeth City for Saturday's 1 p.m. march and 3 p.m. rally. They want to show the voices. They want to show their voices and the voices of those that support them to the county officials as they are making some important decisions regarding justice for Andrew Brown Jr. Our first story of today, we go to Seattle, Washington, just outside of Seattle, Washington, as a situation with what can be described as white on white crime.
We are also learning
taking
new
place.
details about a shooting at Silver Lake in Snohomish County yesterday. Everett police now say the man who was shot has died from his injuries.
And witnesses to the shooting say the man shot had been chasing families with weapons and striking people before a bystander pulled a gun, shooting him twice. Q13 News reporter Steve Kiggins has the latest from Silver Lake.
This incident happened in broad daylight with people out walking the sidewalks, enjoying the park with their families, even fishing here at the lake. That's when police say a man who was walking his dog became aggressive and violent.
I mean, it's unheard of folks running around chasing old women holding grandbabies with a baton, screaming.
Howard Rohde was just one of several people who police say intervened during a scary confrontation at Silver Lake on Tuesday.
And he's screaming all these obscenities. And
His friends snapped this image of him confronting the man on the right, who police say had become aggressive to people walking along the sidewalk, including a woman and her grandchild. Rohde said he stepped in to try and calm the situation, even after being struck by the baton and being pepper sprayed by the man. Look at the man's right hand. That device, says Rohde, looked like it could have been a firearm. Police say that's when yet another bystander also stepped in, but that person was armed and ended up shooting the man wearing the green shorts twice. Rohde says he then rushed in to tend to his wound.
immediately removed his backpack, took his jacket off, tried to remove his shirt, and plugged his wound. Why? Because that's the right thing to do.
The bystander who shot him was detained and interviewed by police, but he wasn't arrested. The case remains an active investigation. Everett police say the man in the green shorts was carrying something that looked like it could have been a firearm, but it wasn't. In fact, it rather could dispense pepper spray. Rohde says he tried to calm tensions, but felt he had to protect others, saying it was the right thing to do.
I'm really sorry. I'm sorry I didn't want the guy to die. I tried my best to do what we could until the police and first responders were able to remove him to take him to the hospital. I did my best to try to protect him and keep him alive, even after he pepper sprayed me and hit me.
Now, again, police insist they've yet to make any arrests in this case. They've not yet forwarded any information to the prosecutor's office. The man who was shot and killed, he's not yet been identified by the county medical examiner's office. The dog he was walking is being cared for by animal control here in Everett. Now, anyone else who might have witnessed these events or has information about what may have happened, they're being asked to call the Everett Police Department. You can call their tip line at 425-257-8450. In Everett, Steve Kiggins, Q13 News.
Once again, just outside Seattle, Washington, in Everett, Washington, a man walking his dog with a metal baton, a pepper spray that resembled a firearm, and ended up dead as a passerby who was armed saw him accosting and assaulting people and shot him twice. Again, the shooter was not arrested or detained, and the names of the victim, the name of the victim or of the shooter has not been released. Now we move to the major international news, what's going on in Israel. And as we've talked about, the danger is it's not just Israel, but the neighbors of Israel,
Hamas and other terror groups have
Muslim forces, may be involved. And we're talking about Syria, we're talking about Turkey, we're talking about Iran, we're talking about Lebanon, Hezbollah in Lebanon, Iran, a backer of Hezbollah, Hamas in Gaza and in the West Bank. And if those countries are involved or do get involved, then their allies are potentially involved, and that will again potentially involve us here in the United States.
fired more than 1,500 rockets at Israeli civilians in just 3 days, while Israel's Iron Dome anti-missile system has shot down more than 90% of those rockets. A number have hit Israeli communities like Ashkelon, Ashdod, and Petah Tikva, killing 7 Israelis, including a 6-year-old boy. Israel responding with hundreds of surgical strikes in Gaza to stop the deadly barrages. Many of Hamas's rockets are supplied by Iran, leading 44 Republican senators to call on President Biden to suspend its nuclear talks with the Islamic regime. President Biden spoke at length with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and affirmed Israel's right to defend itself. Israel is also seeing the worst Jewish-Arab violence in at least 20 years. Arabs have rioted in several Israeli towns, and Jews have attacked Arabs, in one instance, on live TV. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu condemned the violence on both sides.
Nothing justifies the lynching of Arabs by Jews, and nothing justifies the lynching of Jews by Arabs. We will not tolerate this. This violence is not us.
And as the world watches this escalation involving Israelis, Arabs, and Palestinians, more questions about what led to the outbreak. Some are tracing it to the eastern Jerusalem neighborhood of Sheikh Jarrah, where clashes have led to protests and calls for cutting diplomatic ties between Israel and Jordan. The seeds of the feud go back decades. In 1948, Jordan took control of eastern Jerusalem, including Sheikh Jarrah. Jews living here were expelled or even killed. Then Jordan and the United Nations gave the area to Arab families. Almost 20 years later, during the Six-Day War, Israel took the area back when it reunited Jerusalem.
My father took the house from the Jordanian in 1956. There is agreement between Jordanian and UNRWA. Jordanian give the land, and the UNRWA built a 28 house for 28 refugee family.
Now, after 65 years, 4 families with more than 70 people face eviction. Jewish Israelis plan to move in their place. But Israel argues the Jewish claim on the land goes back long before 1948.
We have to know the history of this place. We call it the Shimon HaTzadik. The land around the tomb of Shimon was purchased by the Jewish community dated back to 1840.
According to Jerusalem's deputy mayor, the 2 sides had agreed to a legal compromise whereby the Palestinian residents would be protected tenants, paying a minimal rent without fear of eviction.
Ultimately, we're talking about a property dispute. One of the parties who can prove ownership and another party who are seen legally as squatters because They moved into this house after 1948, and now we have a property claim that, of course, has been conflagrated by everybody in the West.
Hassan Dahoum tells CBN News that the residents were then told to abandon the compromise.
The Palestinian authorities send their lawyers. The minute they were involved, the minute this became political, they had no interest in helping people stay in their homes. They wanted people to get kicked out publicly in order for Israel to get reprimanded by the entire world.
David Cohen, member of a Jewish family in the neighborhood, has seen a difference among his Arab neighbors.
I can tell you that in the last 2 weeks, suddenly everything changed. They see me and every person that looks Jewish as an enemy, as someone who's really dangerous.
Cohen told CBN News of a conversation with one of his Arab friends.
And he said, at this time we're photographed. They're paying attention to us and checking us. It's forbidden for me to have a good contact with you.
Israel maintains it's working to calm the situation, such as delaying a Supreme Court hearing on the issue. It's also calling for international pressure on the Palestinian Authority to stop the incitement and publicly call for an end to Palestinian violence and terrorism. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Sheikh Jarrah, Jerusalem.
Now, up until this point, it had been Palestinians and Israelis on the ground throwing rocks at each other, and the militant and military aspects of Gaza and Israel shooting missiles, rockets, and mortars at each other. But this next report says that Israeli Defense Forces are preparing for a ground campaign. Now, there's no volume with this, and as you will see, they're loading up tanks, MRAPs, armored personnel carriers, and they are indeed moving them towards the border in the Gaza Strip. Again, no volume with this. This is from Israeli Defense Forces, as they are making the initial preparations for a possible ground action into Gaza. We'll also see some of the warplanes. Israel has been using some of the F-15 fighters. And some of the street activities, as again, tanks are being placed in positions to possibly move forward. So that's a brief look at what's going on in Israel at this time. A brief look at what's happening in the United States, a little white on white crime. I
just want you to relax, okay?
And we do thank you for watching. Thank you for helping us keep going. It's $ American Doofus, all one word, at the Cash App, americandufus@gmail.com if you wish to contact me. Subscribe, like, share, and comment if you would. Hit that bell for notification as to when we're on, because you never know when we're going to be on. We may pop up live at any time if it's happening and worth covering, and it's not getting the coverage it should. We'll be on live showing it. That's what we do. It's the American Doofus Show. Don't be a doofus. It's a dark world. Try to be a light. Until next time.